The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
Trump also called Canada one of the nastiest countries to deal with on trade, again referring to the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as Governor Trudeau, and saying Canada should be the 51st state. Now, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Carney is easier to deal with, and that's why Trump is endorsing him. Poilievre says he would be a tough negotiator who would be a strong prime minister. Let's turn now to CTV's Scott Hurst with more. Scott, let's begin with those comments from Trump and how they're being spun here in Canada.
Marcia, this really puts a charge into our pending election, which, of course, can happen at any moment. So we're likely in a spring election, which changes the political landscape potentially in this country and obviously might change the way Canada will deal with the United States. Now, an endorsement in previous years from a U.S. president might carry some weight, but as you saw from the reaction from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, firing back, saying that this is ultimately, a bad thing for Carney, saying that Donald Trump is endorsing him, knowing that Pierre Poilievre would be a tougher negotiator and would always put Canada first, as you mentioned, and as you're seeing right here in the social media post from Pierre Poilievre, going on to say Carney is weak and would cave to Trump's demands. Of course, reacting to the U.S. president has been front and center in Canadian politics since Donald Trump retook the White House in January, and of course continues to threaten economic warfare against this country and many others around the world. We've seen a surge in national pride recently pushing back on Trump and the tariff threats. And even in Ontario, Marcia, Doug Ford ran an entire campaign on being the leader to push back against the Trump administration, needing a new mandate, as he said, to outlast the Trump administration. So it really does put a charge into the election call that could come at any moment.
All right. Yeah, it's getting closer. And we should also note, when we're talking about Doug Ford and now who's going to take over the lead in this tariff battle, Ford is saying he's dialing it back a bit. So is Letnick in the U.S., saying that, they don't want to antagonize one another. So as we get closer to an election call, what should we watch for on that front, on the relationship, Scott, between Canada and the U.S. and the new leadership?
It will be a balance that whomever, well, not even whomever wins, but through the election campaign, it will really have to be a tightrope walk to figure out how you deal with the U.S. president, because, of course, Canadian politicians might have to react at a moment's notice to what Trump may have said on TV last night, like this comment on Fox News or what he might put out on social media about Canada, even if it's not specifically about a leader. As you mentioned, Doug Ford, coming out of his meetings with U.S. officials, the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, there is a change in tone, wanting to kind of tone down the rhetoric and trying to figure out where we could come to a deal and where we could find an off-ramp. And so if that is the path, obviously finding an off-ramp to these tariffs is priority number one for all Canadian politicians. So throughout an election campaign, Marcia, it really will be a tightrope that these leaders will have to walk, whether, they're reacting to the U.S. president or standing up for Canada, or depending on how it's perceived, of course. So it'll be front and center, of course, the Trump administration throughout the federal campaign.
All right, Scott Hurst for us. Scott, thank you for all of that.